So good afternoon, good evening. They have saved the best for last, I suppose. My name is Ben Kesnoka, partner at Village Global. With us today we have Fayez ElFar, the CTO of Sky, the Saudi company for artificial intelligence, Faisal bin Zarah from STC, and Umesh Sachdev, co-founder and CEO of Unifor, a conversational analytics AI company in California. The session today was broadly described, broadly titled, so we will tackle a few sort of discrete topics, and we're going to start by some of perhaps non-obvious observations about the costs or challenges of AI. We'll talk about AI infrastructure and how homogenous it is or isn't. We'll learn a little bit more about Sky, because I think that's new to me and it could be of interest to all of you, and see where the conversation takes us. But we're going to try to wrap in 25 minutes so we can get out on time and get on with our evenings. Umesh, let's start by talking about AI's impact on jobs. What are you seeing today in terms of where we are in the conversational moment between optimism and pessimism about AI impact? What do you foresee happening in the next 5, 10, 15 years?
Well, Ben, great to be with all of you today and great to be here in Riyadh. Great topic to start with. My company, Unifor, we have a very unique vantage point. We serve over 1,500 enterprises in the world, some of the biggest companies that we know of in banking, telecom, and around 20 countries. So we see a very global footprint of what's happening with AI in the enterprise. And I will say from our lens, there's varying degrees of maturity of adoption. The Fortune 500 in America, CIOs are at the forefront of thinking through AI as a full platform architecture, the impact of AI, the efficiency they want to drive with it, etc. And then when we come to Europe or Asia, it just feels like we're 8 to 10 months behind, but we're following the same trend. However, the thing that surprises me the most is that how little are we talking about the topic that you picked up, which is job impact on jobs.
Just before you get to job impact, because you mentioned your enterprise lens, are there, how is the hype ahead of reality in terms of enterprise implementation? When you look at all these companies, like you said, the US or the West might be at the forefront, but is it really transformative implementations that you're seeing or no, inside the enterprise?
I would say we are beginning to see some dramatic transformative implementations, and something that's already in the public domain. We saw what Klarna came out and say about their transformation. Klarna is this buy now, pay later company out of Sweden. They went from reporting $44 million loss annually to $66 million profit a year later. They reported that 700 call center agents were replaced by an in-house trained version of OpenAI. And they also said they were able to turn off the licenses of Salesforce and Workday because of the same work that they're doing. Well, this was the first major public announcement. Klarna is not a large public company. But with our clients, I will say we are now months, not years away, from beginning to hear this from one of the largest banks in the US, one of the largest telecom companies in the US, similar impact. And what is this impact? It's 3 phases. It's impact on headcount, the topic you are pulling out of me. It's impact on software and SaaS spends. And that's a major theme that I'm beginning to see across the board. And the third, which is quite ironic, I didn't understand it first, because I thought the more we have these companies spending on AI, the more data infrastructure gets pulled in as well. But I'm beginning to see a slowdown of the spend in data infrastructure. And that's because the architecture is now owned by the CIO, not the data officer. And so on the jobs front, exactly what Klarna reported, I'll take an example of a large telecom company. They have 26,000 people in their call center, 26,000.
26,000 people in a call center, okay.
We have 26,000 co-pilots in real time running, supporting those call center workers. 5,000 of them every day are just picking up the phone and answering a single question: what's in my bill? Because a telecom bill in every country, how many here are able to say, we understand our telecom bill? Nobody. It's not like a bank statement. A bank statement, of course you are, STC, but a bank statement is credit, debit, total. A telecom bill isn't meant for human beings, okay? It's not easy to read that. And so 5,000 people every day in this company in America are just answering the question, what's in my bill? The CIO working with us is training a billing small language model. All right? So we are fine-tuning, not a large language model, a small model, teaching it everything about how this telecom company generates bills. And ultimately, we'll connect it to an AI agent. The minute that goes into production, this company won't need those 5,000 people and won't need 5,000 Copilot SaaS softwares.
And so this is, because I think a common debate, right, in terms of how AI is going to transform the workplace is, are these agents going to serve as aids to humans, co-pilots for humans, something that superpowers the human capability, or will it outright replace? So in the customer support side, for example, where we've done many investments, some of the customer service AI companies are superpowering the human call center folks, whereas others are saying, no, we're gonna actually, you can eliminate all of your jobs. This is gonna replace it. Are the 5,000 people that you're talking about, Umesh, are they now out of work, or can they leverage these agents to be more value add to their companies?
That's a great point. Whether it's call center workers or people who work in legal departments or people who work in HR and recruiting departments, I don't think anyone's saying that all of them are going to lose their job, but will we see a dramatic reduction in headcount in those functions? That's 100% yes. And ultimately, at a macro, I think of this as we're entering an age of abundance. What does that mean? It means that the companies which are able to adopt this AI as an architecture in a meaningful way are going to start to see their free cash flow increase by 30 to 40%. But what that also means is it's going to increase the wealth gap between the haves and the have-nots. The owners of this company, the shareholders of these companies, are going to reap the benefits, but it'll be at the cost of, out of 26,000 call center workers, I think it's easy to see we'll get down to probably 3,000. Out of over 1,000 paralegal employees of this company who are constantly redlining contracts, that department will get down to 50.
So that's pretty shocking. I mean, 26,000 to 3,000 is stunning, and as you say, great for the efficiency of the business, great for shareholders, but obviously presents some challenges then for all those people.
That's a societal challenge.
It's a societal challenge. Now, Faisal, you're passionate about reskilling workers. What practically are you seeing right now in terms of the reskilling effort?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I would like to go really back in time, just hearing Umesh. If we would travel in time to the first industrial revolution, and you would explain to somebody that you spend 8 hours coming to work, your clothes are clean, and you're getting paid for it. In the first industrial revolution, you have to get your hand dirty, and you have to come home really tired in front of your family. The whole world changed. The same thing as reskilling, this as well need to be changed. McKinsey predicts that by 2030, 375 million jobs might need to switch occupation due to AI.
By 2030, 300 and how many?
375 million.
375 million jobs are going to be transformed because of AI.
Exactly. With the reskilling cost in the trillions. At STC Group, we are very proud of the talent development programs that has been set in place. And we have long-term reskilling for our workforce in order to prepare them for this transition.
And so what's an example of, like, how quickly can someone be reskilled?
Well, Ben, you have to see the benefit of what you're going to reach. So three years ago, everybody was freaking out about AI. I'm going to get fired, and they're going to replace my job.
Although, by the way, I find everyone thinks everyone else's jobs are threatened. They think their own job is safe, because what I do is really special and unique, but everyone else is really threatened. Absolutely. In fact, it's going to come for all of us.
And now the discussion is that managers who use AI will replace managers who doesn't use AI. So it's up to us to adopt this and to learn, and it doesn't take a lot. It's a lifestyle.
But on this reskilling, and anyone can weigh in here. Like, is it so? You're a company trying to reskill your own employees. Most companies, I would say, are not so generously inclined. They're trying to squeeze efficiencies and so forth. They're not going to say, hey, so we've eliminated the 20,000 call center folks. Now we're going to invest out of our own balance sheet to retrain you for other jobs. They're more likely, I would say, to just simply lay those people off. So who else should be involved in the reskilling effort? Are we talking, is this left to governments or these nonprofits, or are we just going to have mass unemployment in 20 or 30?
Well, I have a view on that. Look, given that we are pivotal to making these enterprises achieve what they're trying to achieve here, it's easy to see this chess move 2 steps out, and it starts to create a big societal problem. And like I said, it increases the gap between the haves and the have-nots. The haves are the ones who are increasing free cash flow. The have-nots are the ones who are on the receiving end of the stick. On the one side, it's likely to create a scenario where we could have 3-day work weeks and have more time to ourselves. But how does a country think about wealth redistribution models? How does a country think about social security in the new world? And there's a lot of talk about countries that are at the forefront of technology, and clearly US is right now in the lead here. But I think not just the countries which are in the forefront of technology adoption, but the countries that come up with future-proof models of administration, which include wealth redistribution, which include social security, to avoid such unrest. And I'd say...
But does wealth redistribution address the issue of dignity? You hand someone universal basic income, they still don't feel very good about their life if they haven't worked or earned it, I would argue. So I think there can still be massive unrest.
Well, these are all great questions. And by the way, the time to start asking these questions and debating these questions is now.
Right.
Because the pace at which these initiatives are moving, and we all on this panel understand this, all it will take is one or the other large Fortune 500 company start to report efficiencies because of AI. And what does Wall Street do then? It starts to make the dominoes fall. It puts pressure on every company to repeat the performance of this leader. And the pace at which this could move, even from a societal standpoint, I don't think is very well understood.
Yeah, for sure. And we're going to come to Sky in a sec just to learn more about a government sort of led initiative. I think the reason for optimism around this reskilling business is that if you had told somebody 75 years ago that there'd be millions of people around the world who work full-time as massage therapists and that people would spend billions of dollars a year getting massages, they would not have believed you. We invented this entire industry because we have all this leisure time and abundance of wealth. And so perhaps there are 50 other professions like massage therapy that we haven't even envisioned yet, but that will employ people in the post-AI moment. But there will be some time that will pass before we invent the next massage therapy, and I worry a lot about unrest and low morale and self-esteem, especially among men whose physical strength and brawn matters less and less in this economy. I think there's going to be lots of unemployment among men, in particular these next 30 or 40 years. Let's pivot to talk about the role of government a bit. Fayez, you're involved. You should tell folks about what Sky is. But it's a Saudi government-funded initiative to build AI products and services. So tell us what government's role can be both in Sky, then more broadly to the AI revolution.
Appreciate it. Well, it's in the name, the Saudi company for artificial intelligence. So we're positioning ourselves to be the AI company in the kingdom, largely at the application level, but also in collaboration with various parties and joint ventures to build out infrastructure, bring in cloud providers, and so on. And so we're literally working on our 5-year roadmap, and I'm focusing quite a bit on our next year roadmap across high-value sectors. Smart cities, sports, advertising technology, healthcare, and so on. And our portfolio of products, of which we really want to build many in-house, and some of which are already built in-house, is only going to expand further. And again, via joint ventures, collaboration with third parties, co-development, we are well positioned with the help of PIF and our partners to be that champion. We really want to show what does it look like for a hungry startup to build something that is globally renowned here in the region.
And just to understand, you are that startup, or you're enabling other people to be that startup?
We are that.
You are the startup.
We are that
And,
startup.
and what's the,
Through joint ventures, we would be enabling others, but through Sky.
and what can you uniquely do as a function of being wholly owned by the government that a privately held business can't do?
I think this goes back to your previous question around reskilling and who wields the biggest stick. I think it's a top-down and a bottoms-up, specifically with regards to reskilling. I think the government does have a really big role, if not the biggest role, in making sure the economy continues to move forward through reskilling employees, just like in all the other revolutions that have happened in the past. But don't ever discount the thirst of youth. They will, going back to your point about dignity, finding themselves jobless, they will go back, educate themselves. And as long as the infrastructure is there, where Sky comes in and other government entities come in, as long as the infrastructure is there, as long as the test beds are there, the playgrounds are there, the kids are going to play.
Now, I assume when a government looks at a market, or an enlightened government should look for where the private sector is not delivering the goods, so to speak, and try to fill those gaps, right? We don't need redundancy in our offerings. So when you and PIF and so forth look at the AI landscape, what holes are you trying to fill with your products and services that other private companies and other government initiatives are not filling?
You know, it's a good question. The way I've been thinking about AI altogether is how do we streamline life? How do we make the hard things easy, right? And how do you make the tools work for you? And in that regard, when you take a look at some of the sectors that we're working on, like smart cities, how do you provide mobility as a service? Where you're driving somewhere, you already know where you're going to park, you already know how you're going to get there. Everything is opened up for you, that sort of stuff. And those are the different gaps that we've identified across these different sectors that we're going to start doubling down on and grow both the portfolio and the vision of Sky.
So when it comes to a smart city, what does that mean practically? Like what's the next thing that we can expect to see in our cities as a result of this initiative?
Everything from cleaner cities, so that's actually one of the already existing products at Sky, like visual pollution detection and calls to action on, okay, well, you see rubble, you see trash, or you see, some sort of disturbance, operators can then, or eventually the machine itself can then do a call to action, dispatch the right people to take care of the problem. That's one aspect of it. Visitor monitoring, behavioral analysis in stadiums, and sports, again, is a big sector that we're doubling down on. Other services within the kingdom, for example, around sports are things like scouting for talent. We're starting really early across, football, boxing, Formula One, those sorts of things. Recruiting of talent, recruiting of said talents, performance monitoring and improvement, right? So that's part of our sport native offering.
Mm-hmm. What, Umesh, you have, how many employees do you have?
We have about 900.
900. And just in terms of hiring engineers, all of you are working with different engineers in different capacities. One of the most hotly funded categories in Silicon Valley today are AI coding co-pilots and using AI to develop AI tools themselves, kind of a recursive thought. What are we seeing in terms of these next 12 to 24 months? What are your best engineers working on, thinking about when it comes to building new AI products and AI agents? I know, Umesh, you said AI agents is one of your core product offerings today. Mm-hmm. Mark Benioff just yesterday did his very first post on LinkedIn, post the Microsoft LinkedIn acquisition years ago that I don't think made him so happy. So he posted for the first time on LinkedIn announcing Agentforce, formerly on LinkedIn, and Salesforce is obviously going deep on AI agents. What are you seeing over the next 12 to 24 months? What are your product managers and engineers most excited about in terms of sort of the next set of AI products that we'll use in cities or inside enterprises?
Well, I think we're beginning to see the flywheel move really fast. The flywheel coming from data all the way to model fine-tuning, all the way to agents delivering ROI and outcomes, and this flywheel moving fast.
But are we seeing agents delivering ROI and outcomes? What agents are you referring to?
Well, whether you think about a Microsoft Copilot or a call center Copilot, any one of your portfolio companies doing self-service, those are all examples, by the way, of AI agents. Having said that, some of still more challenging problems unsolved is still in areas like RAG, which stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation. For folks in the audience, this is applying AI to data to get your data prepared for LLMs to glean information from it. Things like evidence management. There's hyper awareness about regulation, especially in the large enterprise segment. And when there comes a day when a consumer challenges the enterprise in a court of law and saying, your AI was biased towards me, the burden is on the enterprise to have a fact-based answer. So using AI to do fact-checking and evidence management and be able to generate that answer, etc. So there are more foundational challenges which are right now coming in the way of moving from POCs to production scale. I mean, it's cool to do a great Copilot demo, get 5 people on it, and everyone high-fiving and saying, that's great. But then the CFO goes, so how many people can I let go next month?
Yeah.
The answer is not too many, because this thing is not made for scaling. It was a great demo. And for that scale to happen, I think of it as a 4-layered cake. I think of it as the data lake, where the enterprise has to now store its data. Companies like Databricks and Snowflake do a great job here. The layer right above, I think of it as the knowledge lake, where you have applied AI to your data and got it to a form where you can start asking questions. The layer right above is the model lake, or some people call it the model zoo. Each enterprise is going to have hundreds of these fine-tuned small language models, but they all need to be orchestrated or traffic managed. So that's the model lake, and the final layer on top is now the AI agents. But this is an interconnected 4-layered cake, and I think there's a lot of work left to be done globally in getting this 4-layered cake to work like a smooth flywheel.
Totally. I think you're absolutely right that the demos are incredible, but so many of these AI products in the enterprise are not really ready for prime time or for mission-critical use cases where you have to have no hallucinations.
That's right.
And so that's why I think actually 2025 you'll see a lot of churn of AI adoption inside the enterprise, where a lot of companies felt like they had to buy something to appease shareholders, board members, or just to be part of the hot moment. But I think now that they've digested that initial implementation, they're realizing, wait, there are lots of mistakes here, there are errors, we haven't optimized the 4-layer cake. Let's step back and do a more holistic review of our strategy.
Can I just jump
go ahead,
there for a second?
Yeah.
So I think it's totally fine that we put out products that are not 100% there. I think the lessons learned from that is probably the thing that's going to get you closer to the 100%. So yes, there's going to be some regrets. You're going to put out some products that don't perform as well as advertised. But so what? That's how you improve.
Totally, and I think the question is, what are the types of products or types of use cases where a failure rate's acceptable?
Of course.
Not. So take
Of
about
course.
in the medical, hospital world, hey, 10% hallucinations in hospital records, who cares? We're learning. That's unacceptable, but for a lot of use cases, it's totally fine.
You do have regulations in those spaces where that
Sure.
sort of thing is actually contained. And actually, just to kind of piggyback off what Umesh was saying, one of the things I'm personally excited about is the continued advancement in small language models. And so for people that don't necessarily know,
Tell us what small language models mean.
it's basically a lower number of parameters than some of the large language models. As a comparison, Umesh, keep me honest here, but ChatGPT 3 was 175 billion parameters. Microsoft put out 5.3, I don't know when, but like 4.5 billion. Still sounds like a ton, but it's much, much smaller, right? And so the idea there is that they're trained on much smaller data, but they are quite good at very specific use cases. And now you stitch all of that with some multi-agentic framework, and all of a sudden you have this workforce that you can tell it to do something, and it's like a really smart intern. It's going to make some mistakes, but it's going to continue to learn. It's going to continue to get better. So that's one area where fit for purpose, right, but distributed across multiple agents of small language models, now you can start seeing some of the ROI really come back much faster and cheaper, right? Because it's so much easier cheaper to run these things, less compute, less memory, all that stuff. And because they're also smaller, you also start seeing more innovation at the edge, AI at the edge, inference at the edge, that sort of thing. You can't really run a large language model on a surveillance camera, for example.
Right.
But you can do it using a small language model. And that in of itself starts driving even more innovation. So again, going back to some of the smart city examples that we're talking about, and this piggybacks on an environmental aspect that I'll get into. Say, for example, you have a remote touristic area, not much access to infrastructure or cloud providers or what have you. There are companies now out there that we are in talks with that provide data centers as a service, right? And so you deploy a data center in a remote area where you can run some of these small language models, do inference at the edge, potentially in the future do training at the edge, right? All in the self-contained VPC if you put multiples of those. And that data center is energy agnostic. It doesn't care where it gets its energy from. And so you deploy that in an area where either energy is already abundant or you can harvest solar or wind, and now all of a sudden you're like near net zero, running a data center, doing inference at the edge. It's a virtuous cycle.
Yeah. Faisal, you're nodding. Have you invested in companies
Yes,
like that?
yeah, I would like to add to the energy consumption, which is also a major cost that I have to share. Today, data centers consume 1 to 2% of the total electricity globally. It is expected to reach 4 to 6% by 2030. This is equivalent to all US household electricity consumption. Not to mention the emissions and CO2 emissions that are also moving on. So it is a major thing, as Fayez said.
Well, and I think in this part of the world is why this topic is so relevant, because
Yeah.
the energy dynamics are non-trivial.
You see some of the big players now literally building smaller nuclear facilities to power their data centers.
Right, right. Just to follow up on the small model point, and then we can kind of wrap up, and we're almost out of time. A lot of the small specialized models the last few years, despite their specialization, like Bloomberg launched a kind of financial news model that was better at that use case than like GPT-2 and GPT-3, but then the general model, GPT-4, is actually better than almost every specialized. Like there were these specialized legal models, GPT-4 surpassed it. So do we think, obviously the large models are more expensive to run, but at the front, kind of my analogy would be sometimes a high IQ smart person cannot give you better career advice than the career specialist person who's spent their whole life studying career strategy, but actually is just not as smart as your smart generalist friend. So these smart general frontier models seem so far to be outpacing a lot of the specialized models. Are there examples, I guess you mentioned, is there a smart cities case? Are there examples of some of the, or Mesh, you mentioned small models. Are there small models that we see that have use cases right now that are beating the frontier Anthropic OpenAI models?
Yeah, so look, there is no question that there's a place for both large language models as well as small language models. What is that place? The large language models are really, they were designed to solve the search problem, right? And that's what these companies, OpenAI and Google, are still trying to fight the battle of. Whereas within the enterprise, which is going to be very ROI-oriented, very task-oriented, very cost-oriented, it's going to be the small language models. And for people who are not in the world of AI or data science every day, the way I describe this is I say, think of these small models. In America, we call them idiot savants. So an idiot savant is somebody who's very deep and knows one subject inside out, but that's the only thing they'll know, right? So the example, I go back to the simplest example, telecom billing. There is no way a generalized large language model is able to answer a telecom billing question because it's deeply rooted in the data of that one company. And if you're fine-tuning a model on the data of one company, and if it's for one task, why would you train it on 163 billion parameters? You'll train it on 300 million bills that were generated in the last 6 years by this company, and you'll say, now you got that. By the way, I'm not going to let you answer any other question, because that's what these models do. They hallucinate. They think they know the answer, but they actually don't. So by narrowing the focus and giving them a deep enough knowledge base, that idiot savant is able to solve a very high potential problem with high dollar output at a very low cost.
Sorry, do you want to have
I was just going to say, that's exactly right. And then you stitch a bunch of those together, and all of a sudden now you have an enterprise-grade operation.
And where this is leading to kind of circle back to how we opened the session, there's still a lot to figure out to perfect the orchestration of a lot of the AI tech in the enterprise. I think it will still be several more years until most companies in the world have full-featured implementations that are really at a point of displacing huge parts of their workforce.
I'm really glad we
But-
finally came back to our topic, which is
Yeah.
is IT infrastructure one size fits all? And I think we wandered about, and the audience was thinking, where is this going? And it's
Yeah.
about jobs or skilling, but we're ending at a good place.
Yes.
It is not one size fits all.
It's not one size fits all. When it fits, though, there will be huge impact on the labor market globally, and there presents a range of societal challenges that governments and private sectors are going to have to work together to figure out. So, gentlemen, thank you, and to be continued.
Thank you.
Thank you.